When we think of the Vikings, we often picture fierce warriors raiding coastal towns, pillaging and plundering with swords and axes. And while their military strength was notable, it wasn't the foundation of their society. Welcome back to History Uncovered. Today we will examine how Viking law was actually their greatest weapon. Let's get started. Okay, so rather than being a law-abiding culture, their sophisticated legal systems helped maintain order, resolve disputes, and sustain communities across Scandinavia and its colonies, from Norway to Iceland, and even as far as Greenland. So let's dive right in and start looking at how Viking law worked. At the center of Viking legal life was the Thing. Now don't worry, I'll stop saying legal life, because that sounds sorry. Anyway, at the center of Viking legal life was the Thing, a public assembly where free men gathered to discuss laws, settle conflicts, and make collective decisions. The word Thing comes from the Old Norse Thing, meaning assembly. These gatherings were held regularly, often annually, in open-air locations, sometimes on natural platforms like rocky outcrops or riverbanks. But some permanent structures were built later, like this one shown here. In these places, the entire community came together. Community elders would speak and debate, and others would listen attentively, taking notes to remember everything that was said. The Thing wasn't just a legal court, although cases were heard there. It was also a forum for sharing news, discussing challenges, and making plans. For instance, the famous legal code of Iceland, the Gragas, was created and amended at the Thing. So how did Viking law work? Well, Viking law was primarily customary, based on long-standing traditions passed down orally, and later written in law codes such as the Gragas in Iceland. These laws covered various aspects of daily life, from property rights and business contracts to family matters and criminal behavior. The Thing was also a place where disputes were settled. If a neighbor stole your sheep, you could take them to the Thing. Here, a group of independent arbitrators would hear your case. But rather than going to trial, the accused party might simply agree to pay you money to compensate for your loss. This was called wergeld. The amount of wergeld paid depended on the value of what was stolen or damaged. For example, a cow cost more than a sheep, so you would receive more money if your cow were stolen. Also, if you were a noble, you might receive more money for your stolen property because your status had more value. Now let's talk about women and Viking law. It was quite progressive for the time period. Unlike many societies of the time, Viking women were not totally dependent on men. They had rights. They could own property, inherit wealth, and initiate divorce. However, it's essential to understand that while women had rights, they were still subject to patriarchal authority. They couldn't, for example, represent themselves in court. They had to have a male relative act on their behalf. Next, let's look at outlawry, which was the ultimate penalty in Viking law. If someone committed a serious crime or broke the law, they could be declared an outlaw. This meant that they were no longer part of society and had no legal protection. Anyone could then kill them, and no one could help them. To be an outlaw was to be completely alone. It was a death sentence, and you can see why this was a powerful deterrent. People went to great lengths to avoid being declared outlaws. Lastly, let's explore the legacy of Viking law. Okay, so despite their fierce reputation, the Vikings created sophisticated legal systems that helped maintain order and justice. Their commitment to law and community welfare contributed to their remarkable achievements. In Iceland, the tradition of public assembly established during the Viking Age continues today with the Althing, one of the oldest continuous parliaments in the world. So from the law codes to the Thing assemblies, the Vikings showed how law and community engagement can be cornerstones of a thriving society. Thank you for watching. Please like and subscribe. Share any comments and suggestions you have below. And check out our other videos, which bring you the most riveting stories on history. We'll see you next time on History Uncovered.